I'm RavenWynd.
Oh, this is John.
You're listening to the Feather and Bone podcast. Two witches, one of which does not really know who she is. Talking about everything witchy and nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
We're doing part 2.
Dose.
On the history of spiritualism. And of course, like the first half, we talked about like the 1800s and Abraham Lincoln and, that kind of stuff. So now we're going to talk about like the later development. And of course, we're just to kind of recap, we are reading from Buckland's Book of Spirit Communications. Of course, that's Raymond Buckland. If you didn't know what Buckland, you got to live under a rock.
I think everybody's heard of Raymond Buckland.
To not understand when I say Buckland's book on spirit, communication, that I mean the Raymond Buckland. The Raymond of the Bucklands.
I know I shouldn't be because of all the pizza we just had, but I'm craving sweets.
I have been craving sweets for fucking days.
Ever since, and it's been worse since I saw that post you put in our recipe group.
Oh, yeah.
On Facebook. Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah.
And no, nobody else can join the recipe group.
That's just me, you, and your mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, guys, it's like a cheesecake filling, the cheesecake part, and you put the cherry pie filling on top of it, and you scoop it with graham crackers. And I've just been dreaming about it all day.
Yeah. Like, I went while you were otherwise engaged. I went in there and had a brownie.
Out of the cabinet?
No, out of the pan on the counter.
Those were the Offspring's first brownies that she made on her own.
Really?
They taste fine. I don't know what was done to make them look.
Yeah, they're kind of cakey.
Yeah,
I don't know, like maybe like she put too much water, too much oil, something.
But they're still good.
Oh yeah, they're chocolatey and like they should be.
But when you look at them, you're like, wait.
Yeah, they're more cakey instead of fudgy.
Yeah,
is what the problem is.
Yeah,
but it's not a problem because it's chocolate.
You're like, we'll take it however we can get it.
Like whatever. Like I've been craving sweet stuff. Like I even bought some of those like cookie mixes, like the Betty Crocker $1 cookie mix things.
Yeah.
And the only reason I haven't made any yet is because like my house gets stupid hot when I bake.
Yeah.
And it's just been too hot for that.
Yeah.
It's been too hot for that.
I'm right there with you.
So we're gonna. Oh, go ahead.
I still forgot crock pot liners.
You did.
You've reminded me every time I've left the house.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks now.
Get a crock pot liner.
Maybe it's not meant to be.
Go in your Walmart app right now, like where you get the groceries, and go ahead and add them to your list. They'll stay there until the next time you go get to add more stuff.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. You can put crock pot liners.
Crock pot liners.
I was like, yeah, like you just like, because we use them at the shelter, so we don't have to scrub on the crock pots.
Crock pot
liners. Watch it not be something you can get through the grocery app.
Probably not. No.
Yeah, can you?
You can get 8 liners for $3.97.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Wait. Pick up only.
What's that mean? Shit. They don't deliver yet.
Okay.
That's when you go. That's what I was telling you to do when you do your next pickup order. Go ahead and have it in your cart, so the next time you go add stuff, those will already be there. Because your cart will stay the same until you change it.
It's there.
Okay. What would you do?
I would die. Because I'd die without you. It's a PM Dawn song from back in the day.
Yeah, I don't really know PM Dawn.
The movie Boomerang with Eddie Murphy.
No.
I'm old.
Okay, so at first glance, I'm like, okay. At first glance, it would seem surprising that so many fully developed mediums came forward so shortly after the birth of spiritualism through the Fox sisters, but Sir Arthur Jesus fucking Christ. Now, see, like, if you're listening, like, obviously you've listened to the previous podcast. It has now been a week, okay? And you're like, how the fuck is this woman still having the same problems? It has not been a week for me. We literally took time to feed the dogs, and we're starting the second half.
Yes.
It's been recorded in the same day. So please, lay off. I'm still having the same problems that I had last podcast. Because it's all the same day. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock, explains it this way. Of course, you know, we kind of get on tangent. He's explaining why so many mediums kind of came forward after the Fox sisters did, and he said it was no new gift exhibited. It was only that their courageous actions, talking about the Fox sisters, in making it widely known, made others come forward and confess that they possess the same power. This universal gift of mediumistic faculties now for the first time began to be freely developed.
Yes.
So, and I would agree with that. I mean, you know, it's like you look like I think it was like probably like the 90s when kind of like Wicca and stuff like that became more mainstream. And it started, like, you know, getting a momentum, and now, like, people can freely say, like, I'm a pagan, I'm Wiccan, like, whatever.
Unless you live where we live.
Well, I mean, obviously it's going to be a problem, but it's not like it would have been, like, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, obviously it's still a problem, because I run into that just recently, that it was a problem.
Yeah.
But I'm the type, I don't give a fuck. You know.
You're able to handle stuff. I get very angry.
Yeah, I usually get, like, educated. I'm going to educate you and make you feel like a fucking moron.
And me, I'm just like, fuck you.
Yeah. You're like, oh, you worried about magic? I'm going to fucking curse you.
I get so...
Yeah.
I'm either happy or really pissed off.
Yeah. I think even your son kind of pointed that out to your parents.
He
like
did.
Your mom and your stepdad.
Yeah, he did.
He was like, see, this is what I've been saying.
He's like, there's no gray area.
Yeah. Mom's either happy or pissed off.
So I'm glad it wasn't me that ran into what you ran into, because it would have been an entirely different situation. Like probably a fist fight in the parking lot situation.
and you know me, even when it's not in like a spiritual type of sense, I'm the type of person, I'm going to be very slow and very quiet.
Yeah.
In how I handle things.
Not me.
And you know, I'm definitely going to stir some shit.
Even your curses are slow.
Yeah. I like for people to slowly, you know, have their life fall apart, or, you know, I want it to be like just, you know, instead of like a whole bunch of things all at once, I want it to seem like they can never catch a break and just kind of wear them down over time.
See,
But you know what? But I'm a water sign.
Yeah.
And that's what water does.
Yeah.
Is it slowly wears down things over time. Holy fuck. That never occurred to me. And what are you?
Air.
Fucking tornado. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
Maddie's what? Fire?
Yeah.
And she's explosive. Holy fuck. Anyway. Ooh, we got sidetracked. But anyway.
Oh, man. I'm starting to get that stupid feeling.
Yeah. So Judge John W. Edmonds had said earlier in Spiritualism, I guess there was a magazine, called Spiritualism in 1853.
And people weren't afraid to buy it?
Well, I don't know if it's a magazine or like a publication or whatever, but he said in that, and he was a judge, for the previous 10 or 12 years, there had been more or less of mediumship in different parts of the country, but it had been kept concealed, either from fear of ridicule or from ignorance of what it was. So, I just think it's amazing that we tend to look back at this time period, like the 1800s, as being very closed off and restrictive. but they were more open to it than what people are today.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a judge putting publicly out there, like, oh, no, yeah, mediumship's a thing. People are just afraid to admit it.
My family doesn't even know that I work full-time from home giving psychic readings.
Yeah.
Because they would freak.
Yeah. So ridicule was a major factor. As mentioned in the previous chapter, many of the phenomenon of spiritualism was easily duplicated by the unscrupulous. There were scandals and exposures galore, both real and fabricated. One major scandal was that involving Professor Robert Hare, one of the best-known scientists of the time. He had to give up his professorship at Pennsylvania University and was publicly denounced by the professors of Harvard.
Wow.
But the scientists made fools of themselves. So he was a scientist, and he was faking mediumship, and he was kind of shunned by the scientific community for faking it. Okay.
Okay.
But scientists at the same time, they there were scientists that was like, we're going to disprove it. But that's what scientists do. I'm not holding that against any scientists. But Conan Doyle, the author of...
Yes.
I keep saying that because not everyone fucking knows.
Sherlock Holmes.
Yes. He said, the crowning and most absurd instance of scientific intolerance, an intolerance that has always been as violent and unreasonable as that of the medieval church, was shown by the American Scientific Association. This learned body howled down Professor Hare when he attempted to address them and put it on record that the subject was unworthy of their attention. However, the same society at the same session held an animated debate as to why cocks crow between 12 and 1 at night, coming finally to the conclusion that at that particular hour a wave of electricity passes over the earth from north to south, and that the fowl, disturbed out of their slumbers and being naturally of a crowing disposition, registered this event in this fashion.
Wow.
So he's saying, like, he's like, they're gonna...
Sounds like a lot of the stupid fucking studies the government funds today.
Yeah, so he was like, you know what, I get why they, kind of got onto him for faking it, because he's a scientist, he's supposed to be about the truth. He's like, but in the same fucking session, they spent time arguing over why cocks crow. Like, so yeah.
You said cock.
Cock. Cock. Anyway.
Cock.
Cock-a-doodle-doo. One important development was that of private mediumship, in the sense that those who discovered they had this ability did not exhibit it publicly. They used it solely for their own private purposes. A large number of men and women, many of them well known in other circles, discovered an ability to communicate with the spirits and proceeded to do so in their own homes with only family and close friends in attendance. So this is kind of when it started going underground. Remember how in the first podcast it's like, I wonder when it changed?
Yeah.
So it sounds like, in the late 1800s is when or mid 1800s is when it finally started having to go underground. In 1852, an American medium named Miss Hayden visited England, followed shortly after by a Miss Roberts. Although they both did very well financially, they received mixed reviews. Some prominent men and women attested to the genuineness of the phenomenon, while others found their activity very difficult to accept. But what?
No, I was just...
Oh, the way you like jerked your head from your phone and looked at me like, what the fuck did I say wrong this time?
My kids do the same thing. They're like, what?
What? By the following year, the continental craze of table tipping reached English shores and became very popular.
What is table tipping?
That's like when they would be doing the seance, and then the table would like become erratic and kind of tip over.
Huh.
And there's plenty of instances where they were able to prove that was faked.
Yeah.
So that kind of reached England at this point too. It was so popular, in fact, that scientists such as Faraday, Braid, and Carpenter took notice and talked of it in terms of force, electricity, and magnetism. There then followed a slight slump in interest until 1855 when Scottish-born Daniel Douglas Hume, the last name is spelled Home, but it says it's pronounced Hume, arrived there from America. He had been practicing for several years and was to develop into one of the finest mediums of all time. He stayed only a short while, but returned 4 years later to stay. Hume was responsible for the acceptance of spiritualism by such figures as Thackeray,
I know that name.
Anthony Trollope, Robert Bell, Lord Lytton, Lord Adair, the Earl of Dunraven, the Master of Lindsay, and Lord Burham. Whatever. Bro dude, I don't know. Perhaps the most famous of Hume's feats was his levitation out of one window and in another, 70 feet above the ground.
What?
It occurred at Ashley House, Victoria Street, London. Present were Lord Adair.
Can I kill this animal?
Sure. His cousin, Captain Charles Wynn, and the Honorable Master of Lindsay.
Come on, Ginger.
Both Adair and Lindsay wrote separate accounts of what happened that evening. After a normal beginning to the seance, which, would have been normal for Hume's seances anyway, because he actually had telekinetic phenomenon and appearances of apparitions during his. Hume began to pace the floor. He was in a trance state, as he had been all evening. He walked through to the next room, and a window was heard to be raised. Lindsay states that he heard a voice whisper in his ear telling him that Hume would pass out one of the windows and into another. The next moment, they all saw Hume floating in the air outside of their window. There was no ledge of any sort between the windows, which is nearly 80 feet apart, nearly 8 feet apart, and 70 feet above the ground. Although there was no light on in the room, the moon provided sufficient illumination for all to distinguish each other and to see quite clearly the furniture in the room. After remaining in position for a few seconds outside of the window with his feet about 6 inches above the sill, Hume opened the window and glided into the room, feet foremost. Adair went to close the window in the adjacent room and found that it had only been open 12 to 15 inches. He melted. Like, I don't know. So they're saying that, like, the window he went to had only been open 12 to 15 inches. He floated about 8 feet over to the next window, which would be in the next room, all the while being 70 feet off the ground. When you would look at his feet outside of the window, his feet was kind of like above the window sill, like not touching it, but like, so that's how far up he was floating. And then when they opened the window, he floated in feet first. So Hume was asked how he had managed to pass through such a small space, and he replied by showing them. And then he said that, like, Adair, one of the guys there, described it, and he said, he then went through the open space head first quite rapidly, his body being nearly horizontal and apparently rigid. He came in again, feet foremost, and we returned to the other room. So I don't know if that meant that like he went to the window that was open like 12 to 15 inches.
Yeah.
And like shoved himself out head first until like just his feet was in, and then hurry up and shoved himself back in. The same window, but like the account of what they saw was him actually going to the next window on the other side. But anyway, so later when Hume came out of his trance, he was very agitated, and he felt as if he had gone through some fearful peril, and that he had a most horrible desire to throw himself out of a window. So I mean,
I could float to your house.
I wish I could just float, period.
Yeah.
Anyway. Other mediums arrived from America, amongst them Miss Emma Britton, the Davenport brothers, Lottie Fowler, and Henry Slade. By that time, the focus was on spirits actually speaking through the medium rather than conversing by way of raps. Slate writing was also introduced, as was billet reading.
What's a billet?
Fuck if I know. You want to look it up?
What's it? How do you spell it?
Billet. Put billet reading and see what it says.
Billet reading. Okay. Billet reading, or the envelope trick, is a mentalist effect in which a performer pretends to use clairvoyance to read messages on folded papers or inside sealed envelopes.
Okay. I think I've seen magicians do that, like where they have it folded and they hold it against their forehead.
Mm-hmm.
Then they open, it's like, oh, it's the word, is, whatever.
Like Johnny Carson used to put on that big
hat.
Yeah.
Spirit photography, and telekinetic demonstrations, that all kind of become popular during this time. In December of 1861, Queen Victoria's beloved husband, Prince Albert, died. Within days, a young boy named Robert James Lees, living in Leicester. Is that how you say it?
I don't know.
I don't. The British have such. Apologies to anyone listening. Over in England, but it's just weird words. Like the town names are weird.
Like I know up north, when I lived up north, if there had been something spelled like that, it'd have been something like Leicester.
Yeah, and maybe that's what it's Leicester. So I don't know, but anyway, and I'm sitting here talking about like England having weird names, and fucking Webster County has Urbacon and Burgoo.
We're not allowed to mention Urbacon ever again.
Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to trigger you. But anyway, this young boy, he went into a trance and received a message from the departed prince. The message was for the Queen and was published in a newspaper, who was published by a newspaper editor who happened to be at the seance with Lees. Queen Victoria already had an interest in spiritualist matters, and seeing the report, sent 2 representatives to see Lees. The 2 used false names, so, no one would know who they were. The boy again channeled information from Prince Albert. He recognized the 2 royal visitors and called them by their correct names.
Oh!
He went on to write a letter to the Queen while in trance, in which he called Her Majesty by a private name used only between the husband and the wife.
Ooh!
The Queen was so impressed, she had the 13-year-old Lees brought to court and held several seances with him. And this is pretty fucking shitty. I'll just say that right now.
Okay.
I get pissed off every time I get to this part. Later, her personal manservant, John Brown,
I need a personal manservant.
I know. I'm not pissed that she has a manservant. I'm pissed at what he did to the boy. He took over as the medium through whom Albert chose to speak with her. So, Albert first went to this little boy and was like, hey, I'm the prince, tell the Queen, whatever. And so then the Queen brought the little boy to court, and then her manservant was like, that's my queen, and was like, now I'm channeling the spirit of the prince. Get the fuck out of here, kid.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that fucked up?
It is fucked up.
But, Lees did go on to become one of Britain's leading mediums of the time.
Good.
So, but I just thought it was pretty fucking shitty. And how stupid was the Queen?
I know.
That she allowed that to happen. Manservant, why hadn't my husband been talking to you to begin with? Why did he go to the boy that I wouldn't have any contact with?
Okay, manservant.
Yeah, I don't remember his name.
I should probably let the dog in, huh?
Yeah. It took a while for the native English mediums to stand up and be recognized. Among the first were Miss Marshall, Miss Everett, Edward Childs, William Howlett, William Wilkinson, and Miss Guppy. And I know that she was too far away to hear that last name, or she would have commented. The British... Now she's outside screaming for the dog. The British National Association of Spiritualists was founded in 1873. It was reorganized in 1884 as the London Spiritualist Alliance. And then the Psychological Society of Great Britain in 1875.
Oh no! Get your ass down.
And the prestigious Society for Psychical Research.
That's a new one.
PSYCHIC. Psychic.
Oh.
AL. Psychical.
Yeah.
Research in 1882. I was saying earlier, like you were too far, you had to have been too far away because when I said this woman's name, you didn't say anything.
I was outside at this door. She was at the front door. I'm standing there looking right at her, saying her name. And she's just looking at the door, the front door, tilting her head.
Like,
and,
why aren't you opening it? You're calling my name. Let me in.
She won't turn around and look at me. I'm clapping my hands, saying her name and everything. And I'm like, oh my God.
And you're like, just stop. Just stop.
I'm okay, guys.
But her name was Miss Guppy. Guppy. Yeah, like a fish. Speaking of which, condolences.
Yeah.
Guys, Jean Claude, the fish, died.
I thought you were going to say the fifth.
No, the fish died. Her poor fish.
Yeah.
So you guys have now been with us. If you've listened from the beginning to today, you have been with Rain during 2 fish deaths. Orange Jelly died.
Orange Jelly wasn't mine.
Well, but I mean, you took care of him. Like I don't think she fed him a day in her life.
True.
You know, so you might as well say he was yours.
Yeah.
So they've been with you through 2 losses now.
My Sheldon died.
Oh yeah.
Sheldon was old.
Sheldon was pretty old. Like we were all surprised. Anyway.
You're like it was a shock to the community.
Yeah. So you guys have been with her through 3 fish deaths.
I had Sheldon for like 5 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time for a beta.
It is. You had to have bought him when he was like shiny new. Had to have. And Jean Claude was probably like on his last leg when you bought him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. Professor Henry Sidgwick.
Good grief.
Was the first president of the Society for Psychical Research. He was, at that time, the most influential professor at Cambridge University. In his first presidential address, Professor Sidgwick, whatever, said...
Professor Sid.
Because it's Sidgwick.
Sidgwick.
Said, we are all agreed.
It went up my nose.
It did it. And is it sweet tea or pop?
Sweet tea.
Oh, yeah. He said, we are all agreed that the present state of things is a scandal to the enlightened age in which we live. That the dispute as to the reality of these marvelous phenomenon, of which it is quite impossible to exaggerate the scientific importance, if only a 10th part of what has been alleged by general credible witnesses could be shown to be true, I say it is a scandal that the dispute as to the reality of this phenomenon should... Jesus fucking Christ.
What's he trying to say?
Should still be going on, that so many competent witnesses should have declared their belief in them, that so many others should be so profoundly interested in having the question determined, and yet the educated world as a body should still be simply in an attitude of disbelief. So basically what he's saying is he's like, I don't see how any scientific person, can let the few instances of we've proven that they're lying outweigh the numerous times that it has been proven that that it's real.
That's what he said?
Basically.
'Cause I didn't know what the fuck he was saying.
Yeah. The Society for Psychical Research did important work with many well-known researchers over the years, continuously investigating. It did later suffer severe criticism for its slowness, however, especially in investigating physical phenomenon. Because they had psychical, and now this is physical. And it's like, just stop. Just stop. Many other organizations sprang up over the years, including the Marylebone Association of Spiritualists, the British College of Psychic Science, London Spiritualist Alliance, the British Spiritualist Lycum Union,
wow,
the Spiritualist National Union, and the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain. So, like, they had a lot of fucking associations and groups out there all dedicated to, like, studying and you know, all this, like, spiritual shit.
Yeah.
Up until 1951, it was possible for any seance to be raided by the police and for the medium to be arrested and charged with fraud under the old Witchcraft Act of 1735. In 1951, this Witchcraft Act was finally repealed and was replaced by the Fraudulent Mediums Act. This latter stated that mediumship was legal so long as it was not done with the intent to deceive or used any fraudulent device.
That's why anywhere you get a reading now, they have a disclaimer at the bottom that says it's for entertainment purposes only.
Well, and that act was actually over in England. It wasn't in America. Like, we're still talking about England, but yeah, that's why you see that.
That company from the UK that I work for,
yeah,
has the same disclaimer on it.
Yep. Modern day fake mediums have been charged under this new act. A good example being the case of Helen Duncan, reportedly caught in fraud. And it says usually in materializations. So she was faking, like, materializing things. I don't know how, but she was. And I think if you look up Helen Duncan, you'll see that, like, there's a pretty extensive history on her douchebaggery.
It reminds me of Miss Cleo back in the day.
Yeah. So we talked about, you know, kind of over in England. Now we're going to talk about in America. There was a brief period where spirit communication was claimed as the basis for various free love and community property groups, such as John Murray Spears' New Motor Movement and Reverend Scott and Thomas Lake Harris's Mountain Cove Settlement. Certainly the simple wrappings of the Fox sisters paled beside the sudden whatever of psychic phenomenon.
Was it pandering?
No, it's I think it's panorama.
Could be.
Whatever. Phantom hands, levitation, full form materialization, slate writing, pellet reading, spirit photography, and the playing of musical instruments by ghostly hands. In 1873, there was the first camp meeting at Lake Pleasant, Massachusetts, and in 1885, there was the foundation of the American Society for Psychical Research, today having nearly 3,000 members in a library of over 9,000 volumes. So apparently at the time...
Wait, it's still a thing?
Yeah, apparently when he wrote this book, it was still a thing. I don't know if it's still a thing now. You want to look it up?
I am going to look it up.
It's called the American Society for Psychical Research.
You go ahead and read.
Two of the most striking mediums to come forward were Miss Lenore E. Piper and Mina Stinson Crandon, known as Marjorie. Miss Piper, described as the foremost trance medium in the history of psychical research, was the cause of the conversion to spiritualism of such eminent people as Sir Oliver Lodge, Dr. Richard Hodgson, and Professor James Hyslop. Her mediumship started at the age of 8 when she received word from the spirit world of the death of an aunt. At the age of 22, she married William Piper of Boston. Professor James investigated her mediumship, as did Dr. Richard Hodgson's. Hodgson has been described as the keenest fraud hunter, the most pronounced skeptic, who took every precaution to bar the possibility of deception. In 1898, he wrote this about her, and this was in a psychological review. He said, I consider that the hypothesis of fraud cannot be seriously maintained. I agree with him absolutely. The medium has been under observation, much of the time under close observation, and as to most of the conditions of her life, by a large number of persons, eager, many of them, to pounce upon any suspicious circumstance for nearly 15 years. So basically he's saying, like, for 15 years people have been trying to prove this bitch wrong, and they haven't been able to.
Yeah.
Did you find something?
I did.
What is it?
It's the American Society for Psychical Research.
Well, no shit, Sherlock. That's what you was supposed to look up. Like, is it still in existence? Do they have a website?
They do. ASPR.com.
ASPR.com. How much is a membership?
Well, let me see.
Because that's the question.
I'm not letting him out.
I don't blame you.
Not after this morning. Let's see.
Is there a membership?
$70.
A year or like for like ever?
It says multi-year discounts are available. I don't know.
I'm not paying $70 a year to be part of that shit.
No. There's 3 different types of memberships. You can be an associate, a fellow, or a sponsor. Sponsors, it costs $2,500.
A year or just one time?
It doesn't specify.
Fuck that.
Yes.
Anyway. It's to make money.
Money.
For decades, Miss Piper was subjected to the most stringent of tests and was never once found wanting.
They'd find me wanting.
Wanting that dick. Marjorie was also from Boston and was the wife of Dr. L.R.G. Crandon, professor of surgery at the Harvard Medical School for 16 years. Now, have you noticed kind of like a trend with these women that they tend to be married to doctors and stuff?
Yeah.
And I wonder if it's like their position in the community kind of allowed them to be able to be more open about their beliefs.
I really don't know.
Like she's a doctor's wife, or maybe they were just able to get a hold of like the drugs.
What?
So they it wasn't really spiritualism. They were just high all the time.
What?
Anyway.
Sure.
Marjorie. Oh God, I'm gonna yawn.
You're losing me. I am tired.
I'm telling you, me too.
We're crashing from the pizza.
Marjorie's first setting took place in May 1923. She showed great ability at table tipping, but quickly developed to trance and direct voice. Automatic writing, psychic music, and other spectacular phenomenon followed. A group from Harvard, including Professor William McDougall, Dr. Gardner Murphy, and Dr. Roback, started investigating Marjorie. She was subsequently given rigorous examination by groups in France and England. With the strictest of controls, she continued to produce outstanding phenomenon. In London, famed investigator Harry Price had developed a fraud-proof table in ordinary lights. In other words, it wasn't darkened. Marjorie twice levitated it to the height of 6 inches or more. So
I want a levitated table.
He developed a fraud-proof table, put her in a room with full on light, and she was able to levitate the table 6 inches or more. A Scientific American committee used instruments such as sealed glass jars, scales, and electric bells to test Marjorie. Dr. E.J. Dingwall, as part of another committee, stated, phenomena occurred hereto unrecorded in mediumistic history. The mediumship remains one of the most remarkable in the history of psychical research. It is reported that Abraham Lincoln was very much into spiritualism. We talked about that the last podcast. He attended seances in New York with J.B. Crookland and in Washington, D.C. with Miss Cranston Laurie and Nettie Colburn. Nettie, who was in her late teens at the time, went to the trance at one Washington seance and attended by Lincoln. And of course, we talked about this in the past where she was like, hey, you have to emancipate the slaves or the war's not going to end.
Yeah.
So he actually did that. So,
I feel like a millionaire.
yeah. The present day legal position of mediums varies from state to state, there being no equivalent to the British Fraudulent Mediums Act in the United States. For this reason, if no other, most mediums go under the somewhat protective shell of ordination, adopting the religious title of reverend.
Reverend.
Yeah, so I guess it's like saying that they're going and like getting legally recognized as ordained clergy.
Do I have to call you Reverend?
Sure. Reverend RavenWynd. That's hard to say.
How about the Rev?
The Rev?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I change your caller ID to the Rev?
Sure.
Really?
I kind of like the idea of going back to the Notorious BEV.
I'm going to do it right now.
The Notorious BEV?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or the Bevinator.
Which one you want?
Notorious BEV. Anyway. Development circles on both sides of the... Come on down! No. On both sides of the Atlantic, ordinary people were drawn to this new phenomenon of communication with the spirits of the dead. Groups of people, many times just family members, got together to sit in a circle and try to develop their own talents. Frequently, the circles were started by people who had heard the claims of spiritualists or had attended a demonstration and whose curiosity led them to trying to make contact themselves. With no television to distract them, these circles would often continue for years, and a number of fine mediums came into being as a result of them. In England, there is still a great interest in such home circles, more so than in America, it seems. America. A big boost, if that is the right word, was given to the spiritualist movement with the start of World War I. This was a time when young men were being killed on the battlefields, when wives and mothers were losing those that they loved. Spiritualism offered a means to renew contact, if only temporarily, and to find satisfaction in the knowledge that there was indeed life after death. The time between the two wars was one of the most active for spiritualism. Before the end of the 19th century, many spiritualist organizations were calling themselves churches, though the Roman Catholic Church early on decided that the spiritualist phenomenon was the work of the devil.
Oh, of course.
So, the Anglicans were more tolerant, though far from actively promoting mediumship. Indeed, in 1953, there was the establishment of the Church's Fellowship for Psychical and Spiritual Studies.
Should it say the Notorious, or can I just put Notorious BEV?
Notorious BEV.
All right.
Because I want it to show on the caller ID and not get cut off because it's too many. The fellowship organized conferences and study groups, lectures, and workshops dealing with mediumship, healing, and psychic development. So this is a fucking church, okay, that had organized, something to study it. On the whole, however, the organized churches were against spiritualism. Yet to the spiritualists themselves, there was an undeniable link between proof of survival and many of the church teachings. And certainly a number of the returning spirits took the opportunity to preach the beliefs they had held while in their psychic, God, Jesus fucking Christ. Let me try this sentence again. And certainly a number of the returning spirits took the opportunity to preach the beliefs they had held while in their physical shells. So that's saying that, these spirits were coming back and be like, hey, churches, don't worry. We're here to prove that, your Jesus myth is true.
Okay.
But I think that was probably just the mediums, making some shit up so the churches would be on board with it.
Your caller ID is officially changed.
To Notorious BEV.
Yes.
Yes.
I
And you're the J train.
am.
Because it was so funny. I was sitting in my office, just typing away, doing my job. And I hear my office mate say, the J train. My head snapped over and I was like, oh, that's my friend. Answered the phone real quick.
What was it I changed my husband's to that one time?
Oh, I know it pissed him off.
I was mad at him.
Yeah. Well, what was it?
Something about testicles or...
Yeah. Was it Conan or something... Gonad the Barbarian.
Yes, it was Gonad
the Barbarian. It was like that for a while. He couldn't understand, like...
He was so mad.
Yeah. He's like, I call that work, babe. Anyway, I lost my place. Okay, here it is. Not all spiritualist organizations wanted religious affiliation. The Spiritualist National Union has consistently refused to adopt specific Christian doctrine. Doctrine? So much so, in fact, that it led to the formation in 1931 of the Greater World Christian Spiritualist League.
All right.
It's a hefty title. The GWCSL, as it became known, because that's a lot easier to remember, represents the Christian element. In America, groups include the National Spiritualist Alliance of the United States of America, the National Spiritualist Association of Churches, the National Spiritualist Association of the United States, and the Universal Spiritualist Association. So America has their own plethora of associations and shit as well. And I've noticed that, like, in America, we'd like to use the title national.
Yeah.
In all of our shit.
Yeah.
And then internationally, there is the International Spiritualist Federation. Their headquarters is in Paris, France. And the International General Assembly of Spiritualists. So, yeah. In America today, there is more of a tie-in with religion, specifically Christianity, than is found in Britain, with many spiritualist churches having regular services of hymns, prayers, Bible readings, and sermons, along with their message giving from Spirit.
You know, they got to take over everything.
Mm-hmm. It says, yet spiritualism remains a movement rather than an organization, with a large number of totally independent groups and, that are kind of separate from churches. In France, Baron Dupoit was fascinated by spiritualistic phenomenon, as he had been for years with mesmerism. He published his journal, and I'm not even going to try to say that because it's in French, which covered 12 years of his investigations from 1836 to 1848. In this journal, he spoke of direct voice trance speaking, levitation, clairvoyance, materializations, healing, and many other phenomenon. Another Baron, Gludenstube, was the man who introduced table tipping to France from the United States. This became a craze that then swept into England. It is still very much practiced today. In Italy, the most striking medium was Espia. In many ways, as spectacular as the Hume guy that we talked about before. Okay. In later years, she was on several occasions called out as a fraud, but these few instances could never eclipse the vast majority of her seances undertaken in the most rigid of investigative circumstances, totally precluding falsity. So basically they're saying, like, yeah, she was caught faking it a few times, but there's plenty of times where it was proven she was not faking it. So, kind of like me.
So you had a 50-50... What?
Kind of like me. Sometimes it's real, sometimes I'm faking it. You never know with my orgasms.
Oh!
I'm like, hurry up and get off me.
You know, sometimes that's necessary.
It is.
They'll make a noise that pisses you off.
Yeah, you're like, I'm done.
Yeah, it takes the smallest little thing to just ruin it for a woman. It's true.
Like, all of a sudden, he's, like, making this, like, snorty pig sound, and you're like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
One time, never mind. I'm not going to tell that story.
No, don't tell that story. Yeah, don't tell that story. Anyway. Said that I got totally, like, the Italian woman, she never managed levitation on the scale of Hume's window-to-window maneuver, but levitation of objects she did do. On one such event, one such event occurred at a setting with Camille Flammarion. I'm going to skip these names. Before the seance, this woman made a detailed investigation of the room, or this man. He checked windows and doors, curtains, drapes, chairs, and the sofa, everything. He looked for electrical wires, batteries, any form of concealed mechanism, but
got lots of batteries.
Absolutely nothing. The hostess,
with the mostest.
Yeah. She stripped and searched the medium, but found nothing suspicious. The setting then took place in full light and is comprehensively described in that person's book, Mysterious Psychic Forces. It was published in 1907 in London. The medium sets before the curtain, turning her back to it. A table is placed before her, a kitchen table made of spruce, weighing about 15 pounds. I examined this table.
God damn.
Yeah. I examined this table and found nothing in it suspicious. It could be moved about in any direction. I sit it first on the left and then on her right side. I make sure as far as possible of her hands and her feet by personal control. Thus, for example, to begin with, in order to be sure that she should not lift the table either by her hands or legs or her feet, I take her left hand in my left hand, and I place my right open hand upon her knee. I then place my right foot upon her left foot. Facing me, the psychic is no more disposed than I am to being duped. Takes charge of her right hand and her right foot. So basically he's saying that he's facing her and like his left side of his body is touching the right side of her body.
Mm-hmm.
So that he has physical contact with her. He'll be able to feel her moving if she's trying to do anything.
Yes, I just ate a donut.
Hey, you do you, goo.
All right.
There is full light, and at the end of 3 minutes, the table begins to move, balancing itself and raising sometimes to the right, sometimes to the left. A minute afterwards, it is lifted to a height of about 9 inches and remains there for 2 seconds. In a second trial, I take the two hands of the psychic in mine. A notable levitation is produced, nearly under the same conditions. We repeat the same experiments 3 times in such a way that 5 levitations of the table take place in a quarter of an hour, and for several seconds the 4 feet are completely lifted from the floor to the height of about 9 inches. So he was like, I had her do this over and over again, in any way that I could possibly think she could be faking it. Like, I did something to make sure that wasn't it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, at the end, he was like, I got nothing. I can't explain how this has happened and why this is happening. Another Frenchman was told by a medium that in one of his previous incarnations, his name had been Alan. And then a second medium said that in another lifetime, it had been Kardec. So he then adopted the name Alan Kardec, and as such became the father of Spiritism. Spiritism is the term used for the popular form of spiritualism found in both France and South America. Kardec worked with a number of early mediums and through them accumulated a vast amount of information relating to the progress of human spirit. Foremost in that information was the belief in reincarnation, something not necessarily accepted by all spiritualists in either England or America. Now, you and I believe in reincarnation.
Yeah.
So we would concur.
Yeah.
With this Frenchman who changed his name to Alan Kardec. The medium, we've just got to the point where I'm like, meh, and we're close to the end. The medium Kardec worked with, the medium that Kardec worked with was Selena, whatever. Selena channeled information from both her grandfather and from Anton Mesmer. And and gave out medical advice. Kardec organized the mass of material obtained through Selena, and without mentioning her name, published much of it under the title The Spirit's Book. So basically he took credit for all of, for what Selena had revealed to her ability.
That's not right.
Yeah. Eight years later, in 1864, he published The Medium's Book, which included most of the balance of Selena's material. So he published 2 books off of her and didn't mention her.
Not cool, Batman.
Yeah. From his writings, his form of Spiritism was picked up in South America, most notably in Brazil, where it has also become known as Kardecism. So they actually gave it his last name. One of the
his fake last name.
Yeah. Everything about him was fake.
Fake. Fakey McFakerton.
Yeah, sitting on his throne of lies.
Lying out of his lying liar hole.
He's a fucking asshole. I have a thing about men that lie.
Me too.
Yeah, anyway. One of the tenets put forth by Kardec was that charity was essential for salvation, and the greatest act of charity is to bestow health. From this, psychic healing developed and grew to where Brazil became one of the most active countries practicing it today. There are many Brazilian spirit hospitals where medical doctors work side by side with mediums.
Huh.
That's neat. In 1925, Geronimo.
Yes.
Candido. Gomide. 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 Founded a spiritist community called Pomelo.
Guys, she didn't take Spanish. She took French.
The only one of its kind in the world where the mentally ill could be treated. Today, Pomelo has over 2,000 inhabitants, including a large number of mental patients. Wouldn't want to live there.
No.
I bet your property value sucks. Another form of South American Spiritism is
Here we go.
Umbanda. 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 Umbanda.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. A cross between spiritualism and voodoo. It is similar to the practice of candomblé, whatever, found in. I'm skipping that whole sentence. In Umbanda, or how do you say it, the priestess acting as a medium is known as a cavallo or horse.
Caballo.
It's Cavalo.
Caballo.
Whatever.
2 L's in Spanish is a Y. Sound.
It's only one. Cavalo.
I thought you said L-O.
Just one L though. Cavalo. You said 2 L's. There's only one L.
Oh my God!
Cavalo. You said 2 L's. That's all. There's only one L there.
I believe you.
But didn't you say 2 L's?
It's okay.
Say horse.
Horse.
No, in Spanish.
Caballo.
And it sounds like a bee?
A lot of times the V's sound like bees.
Anyway, so they called their high priestesses horses, apparently.
No, I think since it's got one L, it's a different word.
Well, it says it means horse.
Oh, well, never mind.
It says or horse.
Oh, I was right. You hear this, everybody. I was right about something.
Well, but it only has one L. You said two L's.
Yeah.
There's only one.
Well, there's different dialects.
Okay. She is only permitted to invoke disembodied spirits. The rites can take place almost anywhere out in the open, but it is preferred that they be close to water. In that belief system, the medium may only invoke nature spirits, for it is believed that to bring the shades of the dead... Yeah. For it is believed that to bring the shades of the dead could cause remnants of the suffering world to return also.
I was thinking it was going to be because when you're communicating with spirit, it helps to have water nearby because they can draw energy from the water.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of work for a spirit to be able to communicate.
In voodoo itself, is found a ritual that is almost totally spiritualistic in nature, even to the extent that the priestess plays the part of a medium. What? I like, you're whispering to her, she's standing there looking at me, I'm like, what the fuck's going on?
How long have you been doing this podcast?
This is the third
one. We've taken breaks in between.
We have.
This will be the last one, and I'm almost finished.
Okay.
So they had there's a book called Anatomy of the Occult, and he actually lays out this voodoo ritual that's spiritualistic in nature. Mm-hmm. And it's a Haitian ritual. It's called, oh, fuck my life.
Is that what it's called?
No, if you translate it, it's Return of the Spirits from Beneath the Water.
There you go.
Yeah. A small canvas tent-like enclosure is erected. Inside are placed various small offerings together with a tub of water and a stool for the priestess to sit on. The priestess enters and the entrance flap is closed and secured after her. Several initiates then sit or lie on the ground before the structure, each holding an earthenware jar that housed the spirit of the dead.
That sounds kind of Egyptian-y.
Yeah. As the people gather around, the priestess can be heard chanting in a language, a secret ritual language. There is a litany as she calls on the gods, and the people respond. This litany may last for half an hour or more. Eventually, however, there is silence. A sharp cry from the priestess is the signal for the first, clay jar, or the first initiate to slip the jar under the canvas into the tent. After a moment, the sound of rushing water is heard, soon followed by a strained, rather hoarse voice. The voice will call the name of the one who's crowded around the tent. It is invariably recognized as being the voice of a dead relative. A conversation between the two, the spirit and then the initiate that's outside, will ensue, sometimes with the priestess putting in a word here and there. So she would go back and forth from the spirit voice to her own voice. Mm-hmm. It is not unknown for the priestess to be speaking at the same time that the dead ancestor is speaking. So sometimes even the two voices are overlapping.
Huh.
Which would be fucking freaky.
That would be cool.
The ancestor may be consulted on family matters. His advice may be asked on a variety of things. He or she may have some vital message to impart. At one such seance that this person witnessed, the voice of a recently deceased man informed his daughter that a neighbor had borrowed a sum of money just prior to the father's death. No one else knew of this loan, so at the death, the neighbor had kept quiet, thinking he would never have to repay it. He thought little of his lender returning from the grave to demand repayment to his daughter. All the while the voices are speaking, you heard rushing waters in the background. Although the priestess has a bowl of water in the enclosure with her, this background noise is not one that can be reproduced using that bowl. When the voice has been heard, the jar is returned back under the flap to the initiate, and the next jar is taken in. So they would keep doing this until every person who had their jar would speak to their loved one or whatever.
Huh.
Interestingly, this is in its turn very similar to the
Just skip the word.
Yuwupi vision talk ceremony of the Oglala Sioux American. Okay, so it's like American Indians put together.
So the Sioux Indians.
Yes. In that case, with those people, the person refers to himself as an interpreter or a medium. In the Sweat Lodge, he simply speaks with the spirits and tells the others what they say. But in the vision talk ceremony, he's covered with cloth and securely bound. All light is extinguished, and then the singers start their songs. In the darkness, various scattered rattles are heard. The clatter of them resounds around the blackened room, and they strike against the walls, ceiling, and floor. Then small sparks are seen as they sound, as though the rattlers were metal striking against flint. These sparks signal the arrival of the spirits in the sense of the ancient race of pygmy-like warriors to whom that person speaks. There is more singing and dancing by the participants, which leads to a healing for those in the hut who need it. Those being healed often will hear the spirits talking directly to them, whispering into their ear as the healing, happens. They may even feel the spirits touch them. As the ceremony finishes, the lights are brought back, and the priest or whatever is found kneeling in his inner sacred circle. The cloth that had covered him neatly folded beside him, and the cord rolled up and laying on top of it. So.
You don't say. I can't get past them channeling pygmy warriors.
Yeah. Like of all the warriors.
Mm-hmm.
Pygmy warriors.
Mm-hmm.
We want to talk a little bit about Morris Pratt. And that'll be the end.
Sure.
Although little is known of the early life of Morris Pratt, it is on the record that he visited the Lake Mills, Wisconsin Spiritualist Center in 1851, just 3 years after the Fox sisters' groundbreaking experiences with spiritualism. As a result of his visit, he became deeply interested in psychic phenomenon and in what had become the religion of spiritualism. Pratt was well educated to the point where he frequently got into arguments with Christian ministers who criticized spiritualism.
Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah. On a number of occasions, he was even evicted from churches because of his outspokenness. I like this guy already.
My great-grandmother was kicked out of a church.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I was kicked out of a church for fighting the pastor's daughter.
Well, my grandmother, it was a Baptist church. And she'd been going to church there because it was within walking distance of her house. Well, one day during church, she started speaking in tongues. And they kicked her out, told her not to come back.
They're like, "Be gone, devil."
Yeah.
That's funny. At one time he was fined for his controversial actions. But dedicated as he was to the promotion of this new religion, he recognized the need for a large number of educated proponents to spread the word and address the opponents. Pratt had recognized his own spiritual guide in the person of a Native American.
What?
Pratt had recognized his own spiritual guide in the person of a Native American.
So is he saying
that an actual Native American he noticed he's like, "Hey, you're my spirit guide."
In person.
Yeah, instead of like a spirit. Like, my spirit guide is in your actual body, Native American man.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. This guide told Pratt of various mineral deposits unknown to any other white man. Pratt then promised, "If I am made rich, I will give part of it to spiritualism. On the information, he invested in a company that was later to become the very profitable Ashland Mine of Ironwood, Michigan. In just a few months, he made over $200,000. Morris Pratt didn't forget his promise. He used part of his profits to advance spiritualism. In 1889, he had built and dedicated a building as a temple at Whitewater, Wisconsin. When opened, it consisted of a number of lecture rooms, an office, chapel, and dormitories. It was deeded as the Morris Pratt Institute, though it quickly became known locally as the Spooks Temple.
The Spooks Temple?
Yeah. Over the years, however, the Pratt Institute earned the respect of the local citizens and even gained national fame. Today it has become the Mecca of modern spiritualism.
Mecca?
Mecca, Mecca. Mecca, Mecca. No.
Mecca, lecca, hi, Mecca, hiney ho.
What's happening?
We're speaking in tongue. It's the dialect of Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah, that was Lawrence Fishburne, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that concludes the history of spiritualism. It was very dry. I apologize.
I don't think it's that it was dry. I think it's that we should have known better than to eat that much.
Yeah. You know, and often, like, we'll sit here and we'll think, oh my God, that was a horrible podcast. And then I'll listen to it later, and I'm like, you know what? It wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that these
Unless you're listening to mine.
You're just like reading a book report like a fucking little fifth grader in class.
Hey.
In the early days of spiritualism. No, you're not that bad. But you do try to read it like you try to like put excitement into it. It's not something that should have excitement.
It should.
No, okay, let me flip to just a random page.
Everything should have excitement for you.
See, my child agrees with me.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, this is kind of exciting. This is kind of an exciting little paragraph. But here's how you would read it anyway. Like, you would go, the table will start to rock up onto two legs and thump back down on the floor. Boom.
So are you saying I'm like the William Shatner of paganism?
when it has done this a few times, say, please tip twice for yes and 3 times for no. Are you a spirit of the world? The table will respond by thumping twice.
But you have to admit, it's interesting to
Yeah.
listen to.
You know, I've always wanted, there's a game called You've Just Been Shatnered.
Oh, that'd be fun.
And, like, everyone has to, like, when you, like, say Shatner, everyone has to start, like, overly exaggerating whatever it is they're doing.
Yeah.
And then, like, whoever is the best Shatner wins.
His show is on tonight again.
Is it? I can't wait for the new Star Trek.
I know. Is it a series or a movie?
It's a series. I'm pretty sure it's going to be on Discovery. Or not Discovery, but CBS, the online.
Oh, naturally.
I told you, you can log into my Prime and fucking watch it, because I have that channel. I have the CBS channel so that I can watch, like, that and, like, Criminal Minds and NCIS. Like,
Jesus.
I will let you watch it if you want.
She was, like, air slapping me.
Yeah. So, that's it for this podcast. I gotta get up early. Like, I'm gonna have to leave, like, at 6 a.m.
Why?
Well, because I got to thinking about how many notes I need to have done by 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
So if I'm there at 7, that gives me 2 hours to get them done, printed, and my billing in order, because my billing's due at 9.
Hey, you worked late this past week?
It doesn't matter. Because each new week starts a new 40. It runs from Sunday to Saturday.
That seems a little unfair to me.
Yeah. But I'm going to go in early. And now I'll do unless there's like a crisis, I'll come home early tomorrow. But anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'll probably shave my legs tomorrow.
Sounds like a plan. We're still talking on podcast. Remember, you can find us on the website. It's featherandbone.net. There you'll have access to our lessons, links to the podcast, the Facebook group, our shop. Rain sells Avon. The link to that's on there, and you can also get a reading off of Keen. If you want to get a psychic reading from her, you can go click on her Keen link and do that. And I think that's it. Remember,
It's
it's magic, motherfuckers.